God, this intense heat wave is doing my head in. Oh, whatever the heck. Let's go check my channel really quick, see how it's doing. Oh shit. This has been a very long time coming, and you guys will have to wait no longer. Here is the narration of Squidwards' suicide. Warning, this narration may contain content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener's discretion is advised. Furthermore, if you go on to enjoy this narration, be sure to like, comment and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you can stay notified of all my uploads. Thank you. I just want to start off by saying, if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There just isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005, for my degree in animation. It wasn't paid, of course, most internships aren't, but it did have some perks beyond education. To adults it might not seem like a big one, but most kids around the time would shit themselves over it. Now, since I worked directly with the editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes days before they aired. I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had recently made the SpongeBob movie, and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity, so it took them longer to start up the season. But the delay lasted longer, for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the Series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back for several months. Me and two other interns were in the editing room, along with the lead animators and sound editors for the final cut. We received the copy that was supposed to be Fear of a Krabby Patty, and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that this isn't the final yet, animators often put up mock little title cards, a sort of inside joke for us, with phony, often lewd titles such as How Sex Doesn't Work, instead of Rockabye Bivalve, where SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scallop. Nothing particularly funny, but work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card, Squidward's Suicide, we didn't think of it more than a morbid joke. One of the interns did a small throat laugh at it. The happy-go-lucky music was playing as normal. The story began with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We then hear SpongeBob laughing outside, and Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down, as he had a concert that night that he needed to practice for. SpongeBob says okay, and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. The bubble splash screen then comes up, and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things begun to seem off. While playing, a few frames would repeat themselves, but the sound didn't. At this point, sound is synced up with animation, so yeah, that's not common. But when he stopped playing, the sound finished as if the skip had never occurred. There is slight murmuring in the crowd, before they begun to boo him. Not a normal cartoon booing that is common in the show, but you could hear very clear malice in it. Squidward's in full frame, and looks visibly afraid. The shot goes into the crowd, with SpongeBob in centre frame, and he is booing, very much unlike him. That isn't the oddest thing though. What is odd is everybody had hyper-realistic eyes. Very detailed. Clearly not shots of real people's eyes, but something a little more real than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't question its appeal to children quite yet. The shot then goes to Squidward sitting on the edge of his bed, looking very forlorn. The view out of this porthole window is of night time, so it isn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is at this point, there is zero sound. Literally no sound. Not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. Blinking in this silence for about 30 seconds. Then he begun to sob softly. He put his tentacles over his eyes and quietly cried for a full minute more. All the while, a sound in the background very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible. It sounded like a slight breeze through a forest. The screen then slowly begins to zoom in on his face. By slow, I mean it's only noticeable if you look at shots 10 seconds apart side by side. His sobbing gets more louder, more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a bit, as if it twists on itself, for a split second then returns to normal. The wind through the trees sound gets slowly louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is this sound, and Squidward's sobbing, sounded real, as if the sound wasn't coming from the speakers, but as if the speakers were holes that the sound was coming through from the other side. As good as the sound as the studio likes to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be that good to produce sound of that quality. Below the sound of the wind and sobbing, very faint, something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second, so you had a hard time pinning it. We watched the show twice, so pardon me if things sound too specific, but I've had time to think about them. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently, and something was flashed over the screen, as if a single frame had been replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewound frame by frame. What we saw was horrible. It was a still photo of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. The face was mangled, blooded, one eye dangling over his upturned face, popped. He was naked down to his underwear. His stomach was crudely cut open, and his entrails lied beside him. He was laying on some pavement that was probably a road. The most upsetting part was that there was a shadow of the photographer. There was no crime tape, no evidence, tags or markers, and the angle was completely off the shot for it to be designed to be evidence. It was seen that the photographer was the one responsible for the child's death. While we were of course mortified, we had to press on, hoping that this was simply a sick joke.
The screen flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing louder than before, in half body and frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done on a hyper-realistic style, looking as if you touched it, you'd get blood on your fingers. The wind sound now sounded as if there were a gale blowing through the forest. There was even snapping sounds of branches. The laughing, a deep baritone lasting at longer intervals and coming more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and showed a single-frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were. But he knew that he had to. This time the photo was what appeared to be a little girl, no older than the first child. She was lying on her stomach, her barrettes in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was too popped out and dangled. She wasn't wearing anything except for undergarments, and her entrails were piled on top of her above another crude cut along her back. Again, the body was on the street and the photographer's shadow was visible. Very similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit. And the one intern that we had, the only female intern in that room, ran out. The show resumed. About 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward went silent, as did all the sound, like it was when the scene officially started. He put his tentacles down, and his eyes were now done in hyperrealism like the others were in the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot, and pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if watching the viewer. After about 10 seconds, he started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud, and most fear-inducing of all his sobbing was mixed in with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did the deep voice laughing, and this time, another photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it on the 4th and backed up. This time, the photo was that of a boy, about the same age, but this time the scene was different. The entrails were just being pulled out of a stomach wound by a large hand. The right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling down from it. The animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but the next one was different, but we just couldn't tell what it was. He went back to the next, and it was the same thing. We went back to the first, and he played them quicker. And I lost it. I vomited all over the fucking floor. The animating and sound editors simply gasped at the screen, completely frozen. The 5 frames were not as if they were 5 different photos. They were played out as if they were frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift out the guts. We saw the kid's eye focus on it. We even saw 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. The lead sound editor told us to stop. He had to call in the creator to see this. Mr. Hillenberg arrived within about 15 minutes. He was confused as to why we had even bothered calling him down there, so the editor just simply continued the episode. Once a few frames were shown, all screaming, all sound again stopped. Squidward just simply stared at the viewer, full frame of the face for about 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out, and a deep voice said, "Do it." And we see in Squidward's hands a shotgun. He immediately put the gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Realistic blood and brain matter splattered the wall behind him in his bed, and he flies back with the force. The last 5 seconds of the episode show his body on the bed on his side, with one eye dangling on what's left of his head above the floor, staring blankly at it. The episode ended. Mr. Hillenberg was obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the fuck was going on. Most people left the room at that point, so it was just a handful of us watching it again. Viewing the episode twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind, and continues to this very day to cause me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory that we could think of was that the file was edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio to here. The CDO was called in to analyze what had happened. The analysis of the file did show that it was edited over by new material. However, the timestamp of it was just a mere 24 seconds before we began viewing it. All equipment involved was examined for hardware or foreign softwares was glitches, as if the timestamp may have glitched and showed the wrong time, but everything checked out fine. We don't know what happened to this day. Nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child scene was identified, no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues from the photos. I never believed in unexplainable phenomenon before, but now that I have something happen and I can't prove anything about it beyond anecdotal evidence, I think twice about things.
And that, my dogs, finally, was Squidward's suicide. My final thoughts on the story. First things first, I want to give an absolute massive arigato gozaimasu, aka Japanese, for thank you to the Shadow Reader for helping me narrate this. He's one of the best creepypasta YouTubers I know, and one of my 5 inspirations for making the channel. So massive shout out to him. But anyways, my thoughts and opinions on the story have actually changed quite a bit, for the better. I don't know why, but I kinda like it. I don't even know. I've actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit. Well, I think I've nearly officially gotten over the creepypasta image of Squidward now. I still think it's a tad bit overdone with the gore, but it doesn't necessarily scare me a ton now. especially considering I've been using it for my pictures and other things in my thumbnails. But overall though, it's better than Dead Bart, because I think this was before Dead Bart. But overall, I've just kind of come to enjoy it. The detail and everything was okay actually, I kind of like the detail, well except for the child murder, but minus that, the detail was fine. It's a classic, it's an OG, gotta respect it. It also got me into creepypastas by scaring the ever-living shit out of me when I was younger, to the point where I was scared of the dark because of the image of Squidward, which, like I've said before, I've practically almost gotten over it at this point. So yeah, I could have done without the child murder, because I don't think that was very necessary to the story. But overall, I think I like Eyeless Jack and Dead Bart less than I like Squidward Suicide. I've got no idea why, but there you go. But yeah, it's really gone up in my tier list thingy for creepypastas. So if I was to give this story a final rating, ladies and gentlemen, it's getting a 5.5 out of 10. That is 0.5 higher than Sonic.exe, mainly because I've known this one more. But yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for 500 subscribers, or over 500. I'm sorry this video took a while to come out, but I really hope you enjoyed this because it took me a ton of effort and a year of overcoming my fears to finally cover the story in its entirety, image and all. So yeah, if you enjoyed this narration and like to see some more, like, comment and subscribe, hit the bell so you can stay up to date with my latest videos, and comment down below what did you think of this story and my narration. Is there anything I could improve on? But for now, I'll see you later. Take care, everybody.